A study conducted by the Kenyan Peasant League reveals that 60% of small farmers, pastoralists and consumers are self-employed, and 32% have suffered an overall loss of income during the COVID-19 pandemic. We have more details in the following report by our correspondent Oscar Pelte.
141 of the 234 interviewees, that is, 60%, do not have formal employment and 11% are considered unemployed. Of these, 46% depend on their relative, and the rest on casual jobs. 7% receive charity support. Of the 67 interviewees who say they were unemployed, 51% claim that COVID-19 interrupted support services. 32% suffer a total loss of income due to the layoff, closure of businesses, or the reduction of casual jobs due to, for example, the closure of local markets.
People stay at home, depending on their own products. However, market foods, for example, tomatoes, were said to have coronavirus. There was no food and it was a big problem. You gave a little millet to the children in the morning, but then they would go all day without eating. And I had no money. There's a lot of poverty.
The tomatoes, the vegetables, don't last long. It is something that when you harvest, you have to sell it, or it goes bad.
54% of those interviewed were affected by the lack of markets.
Many businesses suffered losses because they were dedicated to giving and taking so that the goods would not spoil. With school closed, many girls got pregnant because of the coronavirus. I still depended on the motor taxi, but it was difficult to make a profit. I was going to pick up kids. The police kept bothering me. You went to a place and they threw you out. In the end, you have to go home with the bike. The situation continues to be very difficult. We used to get about 500 shillings a day, but now only 100 or 200. If there are restrictions again, we need to prepare and organize to be close to the government and make sure citizens are able to respond to the challenge of finding food for their children. Thank you.
Most sought alternative income-generating activities, according to the study. People were more engaged in securing livelihoods than following government directive against the pandemic.
Who received any assistance here?
40% of respondents say that their response to the situation is not sustainable. 80% have not received any assistance during the pandemic, and 50% of the 20% who receive assistance receive it from local solidarity initiative. Only 15% of them receive government support.
This aid reached the bosses, and the bosses prioritize their people. They came out from up there, but they didn't arrive down here.
77% of those who receive aid know the problems of transparency in its distribution.
Aid was not forthcoming. That's why we need to unite. If we had help to keep track of the aid that goes out to make sure it gets to where it's intended, it would be major help.
We have thieves due to corruption, because when we select them in elections, we do not elect normal people like this guy. He gets around by bicycle, plows the air with cows, and saws with his hand. He knows your problems, yet you forget him and give your vote to a great lord who builds mansions.
The farmers of Korea resent the oblivion to which they are subjected by institutions and discuss how they can empower themselves to ensure access to human rights. There are not enough teachers in Kurutugyange schools, and there are not enough health workers in the community health center, where there is also a lack of medicines.
They prescribe you some medicine and they say you should go buy it.
There are those who do not have money to go to the hospital. If you do not have the NHIF card, you need to look for money and there's no place to find money. Then if you go to the hospital, you find that there are a lot of sick people, overwhelmed people. There's only one doctor. There's no separation. They are all stuck together and it's a way of spreading the infection.
But as an NGO, can you help us in some way to bring medicine here?
We are not an NGO. We are a movement. KPL is a movement. It's a mass movement of peasants.
Show us the path and the way to get ahead. Now the door is open.
The conclusions of the study, once the data validation has been completed in meetings, will be presented to the government.